Hey everyone, All in Arrowhead here. Week 1 gave us everything we could have asked for. Dramatic comebacks, last-second field goals, quarterbacks debuting with new teams, and even a few controversies that had everyone talking. I even did better on my picks than I thought. Now we're heading into Week 2, and this is where we start to separate flukes from facts. Teams that stumbled in their openers and desperate to bounce back, while the ones that started hot want to prove it wasn't just a one-week thing. Let's get into the games! Washington showed fight in Week 1, and Jaden Daniels looked comfortable entering his second season as the starter. He made plays with his legs, extended drives, and showed why this franchise believes he can lead them into the future. But he also had stretches where the offense looked disjointed, especially against pressure. The Commanders are still trying to find that balance between letting Daniels create and keeping him protected. Now they face a Packers defense that just rattled Jared Goff and powered Green Bay to a big divisional win. Micah Parsons made an immediate impact in his Packers debut, flying around the field and giving the defense the kind of edge it's lacked. Jordan Love, meanwhile, looked sharp, spreading the ball around and keeping the offense humming in front of a fired-up Lambeau crowd. Washington's got potential, but the Packers have the momentum and the edge on both sides of the ball. I'm picking Green Bay to move to 2-0, while Washington drops to 1-1. Russell Wilson's Giants debut was a mixed bag. He still showed glimpses of the veteran playmaker we've known, but the offensive line just didn't give him the time he needed, and it slowed the whole offense down. On the other side, Dallas is coming off a frustrating Week 1 loss to the Eagles, where CeeDee Lamb had 4 uncharacteristic drops, and Dak Prescott never fully found his rhythm. And of course, the big story was Jalen Carter's ejection for spitting on Dak. And while Carter claimed Dak spit first, it turned into the NFL's version of the Greedo shot first debate. Either way, Dallas has to regroup quickly. The team has too much talent to let discipline be the issue. Wilson and the Giants are hoping to steal one in a divisional matchup, but I think Dallas gets back on track at home, cleans up the mistakes, and starts feeding Lamb early to build his confidence. Cowboys even up at 1-1, while the Giants fall to 0-2. Seattle had a brutal finish last week, giving up a game-winning touchdown to the 49ers after Sam Darnold put them in position to win. Darnold looks solid overall, showing flashes of the steady play he had last year in Minnesota, but the offense still struggled to close out drives, and the defense gave up too many big plays late. Now they face a Steelers team riding the high of Aaron Rodgers' homecoming win over the Jets. Rodgers showed everyone why this is his farewell tour, calmly marching Pittsburgh into field goal range in the final seconds to seal a dramatic win. The Steelers' defense wasn't perfect, but they held firm when it counted, and Rodgers' experience was the difference. For Seattle, it's about proving they can finish games. For Pittsburgh, it's about showing last week wasn't just about emotion. With Rodgers at the helm and the momentum of that clutch win behind them, I like the Steelers to move to 2-0. Seattle drops to 0-2. The Rams grinded out a hard-fought win over Houston in Week 1. Matthew Stafford played clean football, spreading the ball around, while Kyren Williams provided balance as a runner and receiver. What really stood out, though, was the defense making stops in the red zone, bending but never breaking. Tennessee, meanwhile, struggled in their opener against Denver. Rookie quarterback Cam Ward flashed some athleticism, making plays with his legs and showing off his arm strength, but he was under siege for much of the night. The Titans' offensive line is simply not giving him enough time to develop plays, and that's stalling their drives. The Rams' front can take advantage of their weakness, and Stafford's steady hand could keep Los Angeles in control. Tennessee's future might be bright with Ward, but right now they look overmatched. I'm going with the Rams to move to 2-0, while the Titans fall to 0-2. Buffalo pulled off the comeback of Week 1, rallying from 15 points down to stun the Ravens. Josh Allen was in MVP form in the second half, hitting key receivers on big plays and keeping Baltimore's defense guessing with his legs. The Bills' defense, which looked shaky early, tightened up late to complete the comeback. That kind of win can galvanize a team. On the other side, the Jets fell short against Pittsburgh in a 34-32 shootout. Justin Fields flashed his trademark explosiveness, breaking off chunk runs and hitting some impressive throws, but the red zone execution just wasn't there. Their defense also had no answers for Rodgers down the stretch. This week, it's about whether the Jets can clean up those details or if Buffalo keeps rolling. Fields will make his plays, but Buffalo's balance and poise give them the edge. I'm picking the Bills to go 2-0, while the Jets start off 0-2 in a tough AFC East. Drake May made his season debut against the Raiders and looked very much like a quarterback still finding his footing. He flashed toughness and poise, but the offense struggled to sustain drives, and New England's line did him no favors. Stephon Diggs is there to be his anchor, but May needs more help around him. Miami, on the other hand, is desperate to erase the taste of last week's blowout loss to Indianapolis. Tua Tagovailoa never looked comfortable, the run game was a non-factor, and even Tyreek Hill couldn't get going. That game was a reality check. Now they're back home, where Miami's speed and rhythm usually shine. If they get Hill involved early and let Tua settle in with quick reads, this can be a get-right game. May will keep competing, but Miami has too much firepower at receiver and too much urgency to start 0-2. I'm picking the Dolphins to even up at 1-1, while New England slides to 0-2. Jacksonville looked like a team on a mission last week, blowing out the Panthers with Trevor Lawrence in full command. The offense spread the field, the defense suffocated Bryce Young, and it never felt close. This is a group with real playoff aspirations, and they're playing with confidence. Cincinnati, on the other hand, survived a nail-biter against Cleveland. Joe Burrow did just enough to secure a 17-16 win, but the offense was inconsistent and the protection still looked shaky. The Bengals showed grit, but they didn't look like the dominant team they've been in years past. This matchup feels like two teams going in opposite directions. Jacksonville clicking on both sides of the ball, and Cincinnati still trying to iron out wrinkles. Burrow's good enough to keep it close, but Lawrence and the Jags have the momentum and the more complete roster right now. I'm going with Jacksonville to move to 2-0, while Cincinnati evens out at 1-1. San Francisco pulled out a dramatic Week 1 win against Seattle, with Brock Purdy steady in the pocket and Christian McCaffrey doing what he does best, carrying the load. The defense wasn't perfect, but they made the stops that mattered late. This is a team that knows how to win close games. The Saints, meanwhile, dropped their opener to Arizona, and Spencer Rattler showed he's still very much learning the ropes in his second year. He struggled with pressure, his timing was off, and the offense sputtered. New Orleans does have some weapons, but nothing feels in sync yet. It's tough to ask a young quarterback to carry the load against a defense as disciplined as San Francisco's. The 49ers are simply more polished and battle-tested. Unless Rattler makes a huge leap this week, New Orleans will keep stumbling. I'm picking San Francisco to go 2-0 while the Saints fall to 0-2. Cleveland's Week 1 loss to Cincinnati showed the limitations of this offense. Joe Flacco was steady, kept them in the game, and made smart throws, but the ceiling just isn't high enough. The defense played tough, but gave up too much late in the game. Baltimore, though, is reeling from blowing a 15-point lead to Buffalo. Derrick Henry's costly fumble opened the door, Josh Allen stormed back, and the Ravens had no answers down the stretch. Lamar Jackson played well overall, but the collapse was stunning. To make matters worse, Lamar shoved a heckling fan after DeAndre Hopkins' first Ravens touchdown, adding more heat to the fire. This week is about redemption for both sides, but Baltimore is the more talented team, and at home, I expect them to respond. Cleveland's defense can keep it close, but without more juice on offense, it's hard to see them pulling it out. I'm picking Baltimore to bounce back, going 1-1 while Cleveland drops to 0-2. The Bears had a rough one in Week 1, blowing a lead late and dropping a winnable game to Minnesota 27-24. They were up 17-6 at one point, but the defense just couldn't close, and that's the kind of collapse that can define a young team's season early if they don't bounce back fast. Now they head into Detroit to face a Lions team that struggled against Green Bay and didn't look nearly as sharp as last season. The Lions were out physical in the trenches, and that's not something we saw much of in 2024. Still, with Jared Goff running the offense and Dan Campbell demanding a response, I think Detroit comes out swinging here. The Bears are showing progress under Ben Johnson, but I don't think it's enough to get past a Lions team that's going to play angry at home. I'm picking Detroit to move to 1-1, while Chicago drops to 0-2 and has to regroup quickly. Indianapolis made one of the loudest statements in Week 1, blowing out Miami behind Daniel Jones' surprisingly sharp play. Jones looked comfortable in his new role, spreading the ball around and letting Jonathan Taylor control the tempo. The Colts defense also deserves credit for keeping Tua off balance all game. Denver, meanwhile, leaned on Bo Nix to grind out a win over Tennessee. Nix showed poise, used his weapons well, and the Broncos looked balanced enough to protect their home field. This game has sneaky importance for both sides. The Colts want to prove last week wasn't a fluke, while the Broncos want to build consistency behind their second-year QB. I trust Indy's balance a little more right now. Taylor looks locked in, and Jones has something to prove. I'll take the Colts to move to 2-0, while Denver drops to 1-1. Carolina had no answers in Week 1, falling hard to Jacksonville. Bryce Young, entering his third season, still struggled against pressure, and the offense just couldn't get anything going. It's concerning because at this point you'd like to see progress. Arizona, meanwhile, handled their business against New Orleans, with Kyler Murray making plays both through the air and on the ground. The Cardinals aren't world beaters, but they look far more organized than Carolina right now. Murray is healthy and looks like himself again, which makes Arizona dangerous. Unless Young suddenly finds a new gear this week, it's hard to see Carolina pulling this one out. I'm going with the Cardinals to move to 2-0, while the Panthers sink to 0-2. Congratulations, Kansas City! Your team still hasn't won anything since the AFC Championship game. The Chiefs, in embarrassing fashion, stumbled out of the gate, losing to the Chargers in Sao Paulo. Patrick Mahomes still made some spectacular throws, but the offense stalled at key moments, and the defense couldn't contain Justin Herbert's legs. The Eagles, on the other hand, opened their season by beating Dallas in a close game, but it came with controversy. Jalen Carter got ejected for spitting on Dak Prescott right before he could play a defensive snap, turning what should have been a celebratory win into a circus. Philly still showed their trademark toughness, with Jalen Hurts leading the way and the defense holding just enough to secure the win. But this team needs to keep the focus on football. This is a heavyweight matchup and a Super Bowl rematch, and both sides are motivated. Philly to prove they're not distracted, and Kansas City to prove they're not slipping. With the game at Arrowhead, I'll lean toward Mahomes and the Chiefs to bounce back. KC gets to 1-1, Philly evens out at 1-1 too. Minnesota's Week 1 game was wild. Down 11 points in the second half to the Bears, J.J. McCarthy showed incredible poise for such a young quarterback, leading multiple touchdown drives and bringing the Vikings all the way back to win 27-24. That kind of win builds instant confidence for both McCarthy and the team, and it's the sort of spark that can carry over into Week 2. The Falcons, meanwhile, lost a heartbreaker on a missed field goal, which already has people questioning Raheem Morris's ability to get this group over the hump. They invested in Michael Penix Jr., and it's still Cousins taking up cap space as a backup, and the roster feels stuck between eras. Facing a Vikings team that just pulled off a big comeback win, I think Atlanta's struggles continue. Minnesota rides the momentum from Week 1, McCarthy keeps proving he belongs, and the Vikings move to 2-0. The Falcons, meanwhile, fall to 0-2 and already face pressure to turn things around. Tampa Bay got the job done in Week 1, handling their division rival Falcons and looking like the more complete team. Baker Mayfield didn't have to be spectacular, he just had to keep things moving and let his defense set the tone. That formula worked. Houston, meanwhile, lost a defensive slugfest with the Rams. C.J. Stroud battled, but the Texans couldn't finish drives, and their young roster showed some growing pains. This is still a talented team, but Week 1 showed they're not quite polished enough yet. Tampa Bay's balance, experience, and ability to win ugly games makes me lean their way again. I'm taking the Buccaneers to move to 2-0, while Houston drops to 0-2. The Chargers made a huge statement in Sao Paulo, beating the Chiefs around Justin Herbert's legs and leadership. Herbert extended plays, made clutch throws, and proved he can be the difference in tough spots. The Raiders, meanwhile, opened their year with a win over the Patriots, with Geno Smith looking composed and the defense shutting down Drake May in key moments. This team isn't flashy, but they're organized, and Geno's steady play gives them a fighting chance every week. The question is whether they can keep up with the Chargers' explosiveness. Herbert looks locked in, and the Chargers' defense is athletic enough to cause problems. The Raiders will make it scrappy, but LA has the higher ceiling right now. I'm picking the Chargers to move to 2-0, while the Raiders settle at 1-1.